Brown, thanks so much for joining us.
Real pleasure.
Really appreciate your time. Oompher is all about inspiring people to achieve extraordinary things. So who and what during your career in life has inspired you?
I think that people like Sir Paul Reeves, who was former Governor General, Bishop of the Anglican Church, but just really an amazing New Zealander with a real love and an empathy and understanding for community firstly and people, and then quite a great vision for our multicultural communities in particular, and New Zealand generally. So that's the type of person that I found most inspirational.
Okay, and having been elected Mayor in Auckland in 2010 and re-elected in 2013, do you think it's important for people in roles like this to have mentors and people guiding them and giving them advice throughout it, considering how hostile the environment can be at times?
Oh yes, it could be very hostile.
Yeah.
Look, you've got a lot of mentors. There's a lot of people giving you advice.
Yeah.
And of course what you're doing is seeking out those that have been down a familiar path. So as a young political leader coming through, people like Sir Barry Curtis, who was the former Mayor of Manukau, was someone who mentored me significantly. And look, I was very lucky in my upbringing. My dad, my parents were great family, very, very supportive family. But Dad was extremely active in the community as a school principal. And a lot of what I learned about leadership and about community service was courtesy of either Dad's advice or watching him in action.
Okay. And you were raised in South Auckland and had a strong sense of community service as well. Did that encourage you to run for Mayor back in 1992, or begin your political career back then, sorry, I should say?
Yeah, no, well...
Was that part of that?
Look, I was active in community from a very young age, and in fact from my mid to late teens I was quite clear what I thought I'd be doing with my life, and it was primarily based around a dream for either community or civic leadership. I knew at that point that is the area that I wanted to end up going. And I was also quite politically attuned. Being active in the community, you soon figure out that rather than be sort of going to decision makers for support for whatever thing you're a part of, it's better to be the decision maker. And then try and get things better going, from that position of authority. So, as a very young man, I was active, involved in sports organisations and school leadership, church leadership.
Yeah.
So I was out there.
Yeah. And some of those organisations you co-founded included the Otara Health Community Service, Howick Free Legal Service and Greater East Tamaki Business Association. So back when you were doing that, was that more about you doing it because you were passionate about it, or you maybe starting some stuff that would help you and increase your chances and get into your ultimate goal, which I presume you're in today?
I think that people catch on pretty quick if it's all about yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, my service was very much about building our community and doing it with a lot of other people. You talked about me personally founding those. Well, the only one that I personally founded was the Howick Free Legal Service. The other two were very much working with local community, being part of a team, particularly Otara. Okay. This is a community I was part raised in, and a community with obvious social challenges. And so I worked in beside people, and we brought together organisations as a collective, and I love that. They just through this service and the work that I was doing, I just kept getting promoted.
Okay.
And that was it.
Do you think there are too many people in public service in it for themselves?
One thing I'd say about public service, and the community aren't fools. They'll soon pick whether or not you're just in it for yourself.
Yeah.
And the underlying thing that I guess has always motivated me is I just love the people. I've loved being in the community all my life. So that sense of being proud, passionate, and really committed to your people and to your town has what's driven me, and it's the reason why I've been able to, I think, achieve, because people see that there's no agenda running there. That's all it is. And in the end, if I'm receiving any kudos or any advancement as a consequence of that, that's purely because I am absolutely, totally focused on those outcomes for the betterment of the community, and that's it.
Okay, and thinking back to your early days, you're at university studying law and later became a partner in a law firm. So would you recommend people wanting to get into public service roles to study law? Do you think has it helped you in your career?
Oh, look, the law was, I mean, again, that was a part of I didn't really know what I wanted to do aside from, community, political, civic leadership. I just didn't know. But I knew I didn't want to get into it in my 20s. I felt you had to get out there, do apprenticeship, do the hard yards. And so I sort of went to the law because I thought the law would be a great introduction to anything, not just politics, but it'd be a great career into anything. Now, in the end, I loved the law. I was a lawyer for 23 years and it was a great career. It taught me a couple of things, though. First of all, how to look at an issue, cut away all the nonsense, and get right to the nub of what the problem is. So really astute and clear, logical assessment of a problem, which a lot of people don't really do. They sort of can't see what the issue is. And then secondly, it taught me to think from A through to Z as to how to resolve that, bring an end, deliver a project. And so I think in quite a logical train. And so the law was great training.
Yeah, and before getting into that, you went on a year-long international exchange.
That
sparked your interest in politics and world affairs. So, would you say that you would have the success you have today if you didn't get out there and see the world first? So, do you think that's vital for people?
Look, I think there's a lot of things that happen in your life that lead on to, an outcome. But certainly OE. I mean, all you guys. This generation absolutely eat OE up. I just want more of you to come back. But to go on an OE, it was only a year. It should have been 5 in the end. I came back a bit early because I wanted to save the world. So I went to Holland for a year, and I mean, that was an eye-opener. I was sort of Catholic boy out of pretty sheltered home, very close family, sheltered background, Papatote, Otara, crikey. And into the middle of Holland is straight out of 7th form, early in fact. I didn't sit the exams. Straight out of Holland, and I mean, Holland was the social conscience of the world, quite liberal. It was an eye-opener, but the Dutch were at that point in time known as the conscience of the world. They were very active in humanitarian causes around the world and leading the social debate. And so I spent half the time arguing with the Dutch there about this thing, that thing, global war. I mean, a lot of as 18-year-old, all the 18-year-olds over there were being conscripted for 2 years of service, compulsory service. This is the back end of the Cold War, 1974, 75. So it was pretty real, but they were leading the charge, and that really lit my mind up. As to the global nature of political involvement and community activity and activism. Okay.
I think it's fair to say in public service that you do have to be accountable for everything you do, and is that quite a hard part of the job? Do you feel like every time you make a decision you have to look at every sort of scenario that could happen?
You're never going to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
I mean, all you're doing is doing your best.
Yeah.
Another one I think of the clear lessons for those who are half interested in going into public service is one, know what you stand for. Stand for something. Yeah. Have a philosophy, have a clear set of values or a clear set of aspirations or goals. This is what I want to achieve. Here's how I want to improve things for the community. And so when you're doing that, when you stand for something, then you're going to have courage to see it through. And that means that you're being cast in the role of a leader. You're going to get attacked. You're going to get mugged philosophically, and if they can't mug you philosophically and politically, they're going to mug you personally. And so you will be attacked, and you've got to, one, be prepared to really back what it is you stand for. Be prepared to take the hits, but have the courage to even go against the majority view or the major majority view. And you've probably seen me do a little bit of that in my role here in Auckland.
Yeah.
And certainly had to do it in Manukau when we were dealing with things like tagging or youth crime or gang stuff. We had to stand up, confront the real truth of the situation, and then take the criticism, the accusations on the chin, but keep driving through.
Yeah. And are those attacks, though, are they one of the worst parts of the job, or is it just hand in hand? If
you're the leader, you're going to get attacked.
Yeah, and you've got to accept that.
That's another truth of the job, and that's whether you're in business, whether you're in politics, whether you're in sport.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the other night we observed the show of Stephen Donald in the World Cup final, and that guy got attacked for missing a goal. He got absolutely creamed in the public eye, and but certainly in political leadership, and either whether it's local or central, because you're a leader, you're putting yourself out there, you're standing for something, you will get enemies, no matter how good you are at your job, or what it is you're doing there.
Yeah.
People will just want to be against you.
And you talk about standing for something. What do you stand for, and what's important for you as Mayor of Auckland?
Social equity. I really stand, hopefully above all things, for the sense of fairness, that everyone should have a fair shot. That for our young people, no matter who they are, where they come from, what their social, economic, political, religious or cultural background, they should have a fair shot, that it's an even playing field. You can deliver that on a wider range of fronts. It doesn't have to be with a sort of a socialist Marxist model of shifting the entire economic base to make that happen, but you can do that in fair, considered, thoughtful policy settings and direction. So that's probably my overarching philosophy.
Okay, and one of the things that you've led as Mayor of Auckland is a 30-year blueprint for growth and development of the region. Do people in public service often think far enough ahead, or is there too much sort of short-term thinking between elections going on across the world, do you believe?
It's one of the reasons why I went local government, because in local government, mayors and councils can actually plan long and know they're going to deliver long, because every year you've got to do a balanced budget. You know what your budget's going to be, you plan for it, you know the projects you're developing, you know the growth rate of the city, you know the economy of the city, so you can actually be quite consistent and reliable and long-term in your planning. And certainly the Super City legislation has set that up, with the mayor delivering the vision and the council doing a spatial plan. In local government you can do that. In central government it's much more around 3 yearly elections. Sort of short-term planning, really hard to get vision going. But with the new Auckland Council, required for the mayor to deliver the vision, creating the world's most livable city, and then the Auckland plan, and beside that, delivering that vision out over a 30-year period of time, it's been great for the city. We've got an agreed plan, at last an agreed way forward. And so, just in local government, I find that we're able to be much long-term in our planning, and mayors and councils tend to stay longer, be more committed to the path, and communities generally back them longer.
So just talking about central government, would you ever consider getting into
No.
that? No?
Absolutely not. Now, look, there was a brief flirtation in my very early 30s when Colin Moyle, the MP of Hunua, retired, and there was quite a lot of chat about whether or not I ought to go into Parliament at that point in time, but I pretty much made my mind up I was going local. And absolutely no regrets. I mean, you watch some of the stuff. I mean, it's ugly. Parliament, of course, is critically important to us as a democracy. I just wish they would behave themselves in a more seemly and appropriate way at times.
Cool. So I've just got now a few quick fire questions to finish.
Quick fire.
So we'll just start off with those. So what does it take to do this job, Len?
Fortitude, courage, and a real passion.
Okay.
I love this job, and without that, you're not going to do it. It's going to eat you up.
And what would the 16-year-old boy you were think of the man you've become today? Would he be proud of what you've achieved as mayor?
Mostly.
Yeah.
When I was a 16-year-old, I was very active in community, active in my school, and my aspirations then were to make my community a better place. And I felt that I could be a part of bringing change. And in this office, I'm really proud of how we've come together as a city, and of most of the gains we've made, the direction we're going in, the way people are uniting as Aucklanders. I'm hugely proud of that, and we've made a good start. And so my aspiration as a 16-year-old would be to do something to help change the world, make it a better place. And I think that as a 16-year-old, I look forward to where I've been. I'll be reasonably pleased with how we've gone thus far.
Brilliant. So summing up your top sort of 3 to 4 bits of advice for people wanting to get into public service out there, what would you say around that?
Be positive. Be known for what you stand for, not what you stand against.
Okay.
All right, so have a positive agenda. I found out as a counsellor for Otara in the very early ages, the community weren't interested what you're against, what you won't do. They want to know what you're going to do for them. And so, really be a person with a positive, strong, clear agenda of building a better place. Secondly, don't get personal. You've seen me, be attacked personally and significantly. I never ever attack back on that personal front. I leave people's personalities out of it. There's a very, very old truism that goes back millennia. You live by the sword, you die by it. And in politics, there's no greater truth, and you see that writ large every day. And thirdly, I think the sense of just having the courage to stand by what it is you believe in. That's what sorts out the men and the women from the boys and the girls.
Yeah.
You've just at times got to stand there by yourself and just show the community face to face your clear strength of resolve and determination that this is the way we got to go. And so those are 3 areas. I think if people follow those things. And look, just the final thing about this area, if I might.
Yeah.
Politics and political representation is a great calling. It's maybe the greatest calling outside of parenthood. It requires a lot of you, but it's at the heart of our democracy, and we need our best and brightest, no matter the challenges, no matter the downside, to stand up and keep standing up.
And is there a bit of advice today that you keep at the forefront when you're in your day-to-day job, that if you could go back to the start of your political career, that you would give yourself then, that you think would have been really helpful in those early days?
Give time to yourself.
Okay. Has it been quite hard on
it's
work hours and so on?
It's a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
And
how do you manage that balance?
Well, didn't do it all that well in the first term, to be fair. Certainly doing it much better in this term. So it's just not yourself, not just the importance of being able to get a bit of time just to sort of chill out, lean back and reflect and think and keep perspective, but in particular keep close to your family. In the end, if you got family, they are by far the most important thing.
Yeah. So is that about delegating efficiently, having great people around you and building a really great team?
Look, I'm a great delegator, but I also want to do it myself.
Yeah.
I'm a hands-on guy. I want to get in amongst and make the changes personally. And, often people who are leading, it's hard to delegate because, it's so easy to do it yourself. You know exactly what you want to do. But look, I appreciate the critical importance of delegating. I'm surrounded by a great team.
Great. Yeah.
And those in the organisation, my Chief of Staff, Phil Wilson, the Chief Executive Officer, Steve Town, these are outstanding men. We've got great men and women in the organisation who are passionate about the whole place as I am. Okay. And I just got to let them go and do it.
Yeah. So just before we finish off, what would you say you're most proud of over your whole political career?
Cool. Proudest thing. It would have to do with providing a good pathway for our young people. This might sound a negative, but I wasn't even in council or a mayor at this time, but the work that we did in rescuing a lot of youngsters who were tied up with the gangs in 2004, 25, 26, that we did in the community was my philosophy of community, interaction and activism and love and care for your community. That was at writ large. We lost a whole generation of kids in the south side to youth gangs, killer bees and that sort of stuff, and we fought together, hundreds of us, to bring them back and get them out of those gangs and keep them focused. Now, it wasn't a perfect job, but I was so proud of how that community came together and everyone worked together off a very, very common theme, and that was an example of being able to change people's lives if you're focused enough and determined enough and work closely enough with others. Okay. And so I think that's probably the greatest if there's an accomplishment, that's it.
Great, Len. So on that note, we'll finish off. As having been identified as a global leader to watch by Monocle magazine, having a vision for Auckland to be the most livable city in the world, can you please look down that camera here and tell us what are your wise words for the people of New Zealand?
My words for the people of New Zealand are that the role that I have as the Mayor of the First United Auckland has given me an opportunity to look not just at our city but at our nation and reflect on the fact that as a nation of 4.5 million people competing against a global population of 7 billion, it has become increasingly evident to me that as a people we need to absolutely unite to our common benefit. We see nations like Korea and Taiwan and Vietnam and in the Pacific Rim and some of the cities in America who have a very clear vision, very clear plan of action and unite to deliver that, even across their democracy. And my hope is that we as a country can unite even more strongly to the benefit of those that inherit this place, our young people, to give them hope, to give them a job, to give them a chance of delivering the dreams that they have. So we hope that our country unites even better going into the future to deliver out a country which has greater hope, greater prosperity, greater chances for those who are our inheritors.
Great. Len Brown, thanks so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you.